Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for today's webinar covering the rise of remote work in construction, how to stay connected with UDA's award-winning communication technology in ConstructionOnline. I'm Holly Gibson, Senior Product Specialist here at UDA Technologies, joined by my colleague Jordan Davis, fellow Senior Product Specialist.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
And we're so excited you could join us today. You know, COVID-19 has changed the way that teams work together, including in the construction industry. Our industry is no exception to that. But what we found is that practicing those safe social distancing guidelines and following the guidelines in your area really doesn't mean that collaboration comes to a halt. In fact, just the opposite. What we're seeing, across the country and really around the world as we work with, over 750,000 of you guys on a regular basis is that teams are adapting and doing so very quickly. And so our goal today is to discuss and really share some best practices and advantages of a cloud-based communication tools in ConstructionOnline, how you can set yourself up for successful implementation, ideas about how to use the different communication tools that are available to you in your subscription. So we can't wait to dive in, and we can't wait to hear from you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of hearing from you all, if this is the first time that you've joined into a UDA Technologies webinar, we want to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Holly and I, we like running engaged and interactive webinars. And really in service of that, we invite you to take a look at the GoToWebinar panel where you'll find a section titled Questions. You can submit questions to us as we're working through the different webinar topics today. And Holly and I will address those questions or comments as they come in as we go through. Our colleague Sydney Dorsey is on the keyboard, and she will be highlighting and flagging different questions that come in for us to pay attention to as we work through things today. We'd really love to hear from you, and we'd really like to find out how things have impacted or how COVID-19 has impacted you and your daily communication processes. That'll help us tailor the webinar today towards communication tools in ConstructionOnline that can help you and your company maintain productivity moving forward.
Now, as we work through some of those topics, we really are going to focus in on a few main tools in ConstructionOnline. One thing that I always look at when helping new customers get started, so I get to work with a lot of you as you're first getting started with ConstructionOnline or really trying to decide the best way to go for your company. And teams will often tell me that they're really looking for a few key things for a software like ConstructionOnline to help them with. So often we're looking at things like being able to grow and scale effectively. We're looking at adding value to teams like yours by helping you work more efficiently. We're looking at protecting your business with accurate documentation. In fact, we've got a webinar coming up on that in a couple of weeks. So some of that protection and documentation. We also look at things like how to make jobs more profitable. So that's usually a key component. And really the fifth component that is one that comes up with almost every person I work with is, how to help my team work better together, how to make sure that everybody on the project team has easy access to the information they need and that we're able to communicate well together. And so that's really what we're going to dive into with this session is that last component, looking at improving that communication. And there are a few key ways that you can enable that within ConstructionOnline. So we'll look at things like announcements, messages, more formal communication like RFIs. We'll look at more internal team communication with the Envoy Chat tool, and we'll look at how to handle outside communication with our inbound email tool. So there's really a communication answer in ConstructionOnline for every question you might have. And so we'll really dive in and focus in on how to use those tools. Now, as we get started with today, Jordan, I know you also work with a lot of new teams as they're getting started. Can you talk a little bit about, what you're hearing from your customers in terms of, the importance of really having a centralized communication platform and how tracking that correspondence, either helps teams who are doing it well or maybe hurts teams that are not doing it so well?
Yeah, so I've had the fortune of speaking with a lot of our clients over the past weeks and really months. And you could tell that as shelter-in-place orders and as other things came across both the United States and abroad, you could tell the companies that were proactively prepared to shift to a digital-first workplace, and the ones who were not. The ones that already were moving towards or were taking advantage of different communication tools in ConstructionOnline, like the messages, like Envoy Chat, other pieces that we're going to be showing off today, had an easy time to switch. It was almost, it was kind of spooky how much of a business as usual type conversation that has been for some clients I'm working with. When I speak with other clients who are completely shut down and they're trying to keep their team busy, or they're trying to find things to do, it's a very stark contrast between the two. And I really think that really one of the key differences between those two types of teams is an understanding that the main challenge to be overcome in any construction project, or any project in general, really, is clear, concise communication. And so the tools inside of ConstructionOnline are really facilitating for these companies who are doing well that clear and concise communication, whereas others, they're a little behind the curve, but they're adapting and putting in place different internal communication processes, like making sure that they're sending messages to each other through the platform in the specific project, as opposed to just a random email that floats from one inbox to another. Or they're sending Envoy chats back and forth to each other instead of text messaging, which can be lost if someone's phone disappears or breaks, or is obsolete and is thrown away. There's a lot of alternatives and a lot of better choices to be made inside of ConstructionOnline, and really excited to show off what you could be using inside of your company and your team today.
That's right. I think what I'm seeing and hearing really from a lot of my clients that I work with is that if we kind of look at how does this all apply to remote work, communication didn't suddenly start being important overnight. It's always been an important part of, project success, as you mentioned. And I think that what I've seen is that those lines have now started to sharpen a bit, that more and more teams are looking at working remotely. Now, some of you, and remote work has been growing in popularity over the last couple of years, and so I know that many customers that I've worked with have already begun that process of transitioning to a remote or partially remote workforce. An advantage that the construction industry has is that really a significant amount of the work that's happening has always been happening outside of the office. So, you as construction project management teams and adjacent teams in that industry have really always had to look at better communication tools, because you have people both in the office and out of the office. The difference that's happening now, of course, is that two things are happening. One, more and more teams are looking at working remotely as a primary way of doing things, replacing some of those brick and mortar offices, or replacing maybe satellite offices with remote workers. And of course, the current COVID-19 guidelines have meant that for many people, they've had to accelerate that process much faster if they were already thinking about it, or maybe had to really think about becoming a remote team almost overnight, when that wasn't something that was being planned. And so what happens is the lines do start to sharpen a little bit between teams that already had such great processes in place for communication, or really just even not only just great processes, but just ways of doing things that we all get used to in the office. A quick scenario would be this, let's just say that we want to send someone a message, and maybe our team has gotten used to using text on a pretty regular basis. Everyone texts, right? So it's a pretty easy thing to do. We all have our phones with us all the time. And if you are looking for something in a text message that, maybe Jordan, you mentioned in a meeting a couple of days ago that a client texted you something. When we're all in the office together, I can just walk over to your office and say, hey, can you look at your phone? What was that text that you mentioned from the client the other day? Can you show me what they sent you? Whereas if we're not in the same office, that is not going to happen. That's not a thing that we're going to be able to do. Same thing with messages or emails. Everyone really lives on their phone or lives in their email, so a lot of communication happens that way. And it can be an easy way to do it, but there's some disadvantages there that become especially apparent when everyone's working remotely, because I can't see your email and you can't see mine, and we can't walk over and collaborate that way. So it creates a lot of noise where there's just a lot of extra back and forth happening, and ConstructionOnline can help eliminate all that. So let's maybe jump into, Jordan, where's your favorite place to start if we're looking at helping a team start to get up and going with some of these wonderful communication tools? Where do you think is the best place for us to start?
Well, I think given the current climate, the current timeline that we're in right now, the best place to start recently has been Envoy Chat. This is a newer tool that we've worked on and implemented inside of ConstructionOnline that acts as an instant messaging tool. And the reason why I'm pointing people towards this is really to replace or to cut out text messages, other messaging platforms, things that you might be using right now that's causing your team to pay attention to more than one tool or more than one software at a time. Sure, there's instant messaging platforms out there that send messages back and forth instantly, and they're installed as a desktop application. But there's some efficiency lost when you're jumping back and forth between different softwares and different tasks and processes. And what we found is that Envoy Chat works really well to replace a couple of things. One, the instant messaging programs that we mentioned before, and two, text messaging. Because while text messaging is easy and you can just type out a quick message and send it to somebody, there's a lot of downsides, like you were mentioning, Holly. And it's funny, we're going to echo some of the downsides of text messaging, I think, when we talk about emails and the inbound email inbox, but we'll get to that later. For now, I usually start by at least pointing out that Envoy Chat is included with every single ConstructionOnline subscription. It's built into the platform by default, and it handles messaging your team very, very well. In fact, I really like to point out the speed. I'm going to go ahead and send a message across, and we should see, Holly, if you'll scroll down on my chat message over here on the right, the speed of Envoy Chat is it's kind of hard to describe. I mean, it's pretty much instantaneous. In fact, I think it loaded faster on your screen over here, Holly, than it did on mine when I sent the message. I don't even know how that's possible, but I did just see that happen from my side. So you can see we're having a pretty, I think, pretty common conversation. It's difficult sometimes to keep up with every single scrap of information for every client, for every project that you're working on. That's really where working as a team comes into play. What I've done here is I've been talking with Holly about a client we're working with together for a specific project, and she's taking a while to finalize her choice for which sink she wants in the kitchen. It's a big choice. It's taken her over 2 months to decide, but I was finally able to get in touch with her today, and I noted down the conversation inside of this call log that I sent over to Holly. And I think this is another advantage you'll start to see using Envoy Chat, and that is the capability for us to link to specific items throughout the ConstructionOnline platform within Envoy Chat. This is going to be unique, of course, to Envoy Chat because, well, it's our platform and we're in control of pretty much everything that it does. Things like being able to interpret internal ConstructionOnline links to take people directly to what they should be looking at in the platform.
Yeah, now a couple of things that I really think are super useful about Envoy Chat. One is that even though it is it's a great replacement for text, not only because of what we're seeing here, but because it also works with the ConstructionOnline mobile app. So you're getting those notifications coming right to your phone, really the same way that you would with a text message. In fact, it looks almost the same as it does when you get a text in. You get a nice little notification at the top. You just tap on that notification. That's going to show up, on your phone immediately as soon as the person who's trying to reach you goes ahead and sends that message. So it is instant. It is just as easy as text. But as you can see, Jordan and I here are having an exchange about, a client and some project questions, and it's really better to have that be a part of the records for the company as opposed to just lost in one of our text message accounts. If we ever need to go back and find this information, we'll be able to do it. I can just pull up my chat with Jordan, at any time. Another thing that I think is really useful about Envoy is that it can always stay with me in ConstructionOnline if I'm working on my regular desktop computer or laptop. it's really serving as a replacement for other instant messenger tools that you might use, but only better because it's inside Construction Online and it can stay with you no matter what you're working on. So rather than having to flip to a different application, if I've got people who are also working at home or maybe they're in the field, I'm communicating back and forth with them, so I want to keep that going, but I also am working on other things in Construction Online. No matter which page we go to, my chats are going to stay right here with me, so I can always see immediately if someone has sent me a message. I can always reply to that really fast. As Jordan showed, you can send links to specific items within Construction Online, so that's something that's really unique to us and unique to using Construction Online for your team communication here, is that you can set those links up, and the chat and that communication is always with me, so it really means that I'm always connected to my team. Now, Envoy Chat is for your internal project team, so that's going to be for your company users in Construction Online. And like Jordan mentioned, that's just standard with all of your accounts. So if you haven't started using Envoy Chat yet, or if you're thinking about maybe getting started with Construction Online and wonder, hey, would this be included or would this be extra? Nope, it's all just built right in. So that's going to be included with your subscriptions. And a really useful and easy tool to use as you are getting started. Now it looks like Jordan is setting up a group chat here, which is another one of those really wonderful things that you can do. So Envoy allows you to, of course, communicate back and forth with individual team members, but we can also set up group chats or chats for specific purposes. Like in my Envoy chat, I've set up a channel for sales. So maybe if I'm working with my sales team, we want to add all of those to that group message together. If we want to set up a group message, that's around a specific project, looks like Jordan's got that set up for us here. So that way all the communication related to that subject can go in that one area. And when you need to go back and look at that information, it's always going to be, easily accessible for you. Wonderful. Looks like we got the Peterson contract signed today. And we've even built in fun tools like your standard set of emojis. So if you'd like to add a little extra personality, we don't want to take the fun out of texting or out of the messages that you might send. So it has everything that you would expect. It's just built right in so that you're not interrupting your work and you always have those records available for you. Now, Jordan, it looks like you've got a message or channel set up here for the Farrell residents. I also have one set up for our Summit project. So you can create different group messages or channels that are going to be, around a specific project or maybe a specific subject like we've done with our sales team here. So really there's a lot of flexibility in how you set up and use Envoy Chat day to day.
Yeah, I found that the project chats are a really popular approach, and they end up working really well for different companies to just stay on the same page for a project, even if it's just a quick update about something happening on the project. It's easily referable, it's easy to find, and it's easy to keep everyone who's part of the project chat on the same page for a project without needing to meet or just and track down an email. There's a ton of benefits that the Envoy chat has over something like email. One of those is that it's a lot easier to find and a lot easier to keep organized than I'm sure most people's email inboxes at this point in time.
Now, you can attach regular files and pictures as well. So if you need to send a photograph to someone, you can either just drop that right into your chat, or you can maybe browse your files in Construction Online or wherever you have been storing those. So you've got some different options for how you would, potentially share information here. So you've got the ability to just add those things in as needed. Those come through just as quickly, of course, as your texts do. One other thing that you can do that's really useful with Envoy Chat is you can pin or star messages, so that if you need to come back and just look for your starred items, you'll be able to do that as well. So super easy way to do that. Once someone has sent you a file or photograph, you can also come in and do all the things that you would expect to be able to do with a picture. I can view that image a little bit bigger here. I can come back and maybe download this file if I want to do that. So all sorts of things that you can do with the information. Now, I'd like to keep my Envoy Chat always visible here on my screen. To me, I think that makes it more likely that I'm going to be able to see things coming in if I'm working on my desktop computer and be able to respond to them a little bit faster. If you prefer to maybe save a little bit more space, you can collapse it down so that it just sits kind of at the bottom. You'll still receive those notifications, but it's just not quite as large as having it expanded all the time. Or if you want to hide it, you do have the option to hide that altogether, and you'll still get the notifications up here in that top left where we can see what other team members are currently working on ConstructionOnline right now. This is another great collaboration tool for those of you that are now working remotely with your team, because when you log on to ConstructionOnline, not only can you communicate with your team, but even when you just log in, you're able to see who else is already logged in. So I can see that I'm online, my colleague Jim is online, Sydney's here, and Jordan is here. So I already know who's online and working with me today and have an easy way to reach them instantly.
Yeah, there's something to be said about being able to see other people working together at the same time. So especially if you're working from home and you don't have the same level of interaction with other people, it's kind of comforting to know that you're not the only person working at that point in time.
It's also great too because you can see what everybody's working on. So I can see that Jim, my colleague, is working on checklist. It looks like Sydney is working on some upcoming items on our company overview page. So looking at some of those company tasks there. It looks like Jordan is adding some information to a call log. So I'm able to really see what everyone is doing. So when we're looking at communicating with internal teams, these are some of the first sort of go-to places that you'll want to look to start to communicate more and better on a day-to-day basis. Now, when we start to look at communicating with team members or extended team members, owners, project stakeholders, your clients, trade partners, as well as, people within your company, you really want to look at some of the additional tools available as well. So I'm going to jump into one of my projects here. We'll just go into Hamilton and head over to our communication area. And within this section, this is actually one of the largest sections available to you in ConstructionOnline. And there are a ton of great tools here, all designed to help make communicating not only internally but externally even easier as well. Now, the place that I always like to start here is messages, because again, messages is just really an easy replacement for something we all already know how to use. So everyone already knows how to use their email. Messages is just another way to do that, but it's going to keep everything, one, spam free, two, organized around your project instead of lost in whoever's email client is working on it. So it's really keeping everything organized. You do have places where you can go and see all your messages together. I've chosen to look here at my project messages so I can just see only those messages that relate to this job. Now, this project's a little bit newer, so we don't have any messages just yet. But if we go ahead and start sending those out, the great thing here as well is that it's so easy for the recipients to reply. So especially if you're working with outside people. So maybe here I'm going to send a message to one of my trade partners here. We'll send a message to one of our subcontractors. Their response to it really doesn't depend on them coming into ConstructionOnline. Now, they will see that in their ClientLink or TeamLink portals. But it's also even easier to respond than that, Jordan. I know that's one of the things that you really like to have people start using early as well.
Well, that's right. I like to encourage people to start using the messaging system when they first get started because it's very how do I put this? You don't have to hold people's hands really to get them to reply to your email. Um, that's, I think, the biggest key here. So when we send this message to Ted, Ted might not, at this point in time, have any idea what Construction Online even means. Maybe he's a newer subcontractor we're working with, and he hasn't actually taken a look at the client or the TeamLink portal. Or maybe we're just starting to use Construction Online at our company with our subcontractors, and they're not really sure what it entails or what it's about, at least in terms of logging into a project portal. But at this point in 2020, most people should be familiar at least with what an email is, even if they don't use it that much. And replying to an email is very straightforward. We've put in some pretty common sense functionality here so that whenever someone replies to a message sent from Construction Online, not only will it send back an email to your email inbox and the email inboxes of anybody else attached to the message, it is also going to store a copy of the reply in the platform inside of the project as well. Right? So we're getting two benefits here. One, we're engaging and communicating with people through email, which they're mostly familiar with for the most part. And secondly, we're storing a copy of that inside of the project so that if we ever need to refer to it again, we can pull it up, and we really didn't have to take any extra steps to do that at all. We didn't have to send a copy. We didn't have to copy another address. We just wrote an email and sent it out. It's a really, really effective tool and can save a lot of time and also make it a lot easier to track down messages in the future as well.
So what I'm doing here is I've received this email here, so I'm logged in as my subcontractor Ted. That's come into a Gmail account on my phone. I'm just replying. So one great thing here is that there's nothing special. All they have to do is just hit reply. They're going to respond to this just like they would any other email. And as soon as we've got that done, we'll go ahead and see that response come right back. So they're not having to do anything special or extra. You're not having to do anything special or extra, but you do get a lot of that benefit out of it. The other thing that happens here as well is that your project team internally, now, everyone has access to this information. It's not super secret information, that's only available on Jordan's computer that I can maybe get to when he's in the office. It's really bringing that visibility to the project as well.
Yeah, that's another key. Instead of having to reactively send an email to other people on your team, you can simply just give the right people access to the project proactively. And if they need to look up any messages or see, important project communication, they can just head right into the messages tab and follow through for themselves. It can save you a lot of time instead of duplicating efforts that other people, would put on you as a project coordinator or a project manager. You can really encourage people to take their own initiative and keep up to date with the project themselves by making it very easy for them to see.
Now, you'll notice that when you send the messages out of Construction Online, when those replies come back in, it's going to stay with that same message. So it's organized much the same way it would be in just, again, your regular email. So it's just a reply back to this same message. I can see really clearly who sent which message, what time those came in. If I need to now loop someone else in, so, maybe I need to add someone else to this conversation at this point, I can do that as well. So if we want to just add in, maybe I want to add in Jordan here, I can do that. Go ahead and add him, and now he'll be able to see the message and also reply to it as well. So super easy setup in terms of how to use messages, and an easy way to just start centralizing that communication. That's not a big ask of everyone else on the team. Now sometimes something else will happen where maybe you don't start the message in Construction Online, but you're receiving messages outside the system. So there's a couple of scenarios where that might happen, but part of it is just that not every message is going to be one that you start. Now, if you're using our ClientLink and TeamLink portals, those team members of course do have the ability to send you a message right from their portal, but it's not unusual when you're running a project for you to receive emails outside of ConstructionOnline that you really want to be able to store. You need that information available. We don't want to spend a lot of time copying and pasting. And so for that, we have put together this inbound emails area for you. Now, this is automatically created for each project. So again, no extra work on your part. With the inbound emails tool, what happens is each project automatically gets a project email address. So you can see that I've got a project email address here. The best thing to do with this email address is come into your project, copy your email address, and go ahead over to your regular email client and just add this as a contact. You can come into your whatever you use for your email on a day-to-day basis. Here I'm using Gmail. You can add this email address as a contact, and then that way if you get an email like this one where someone has sent you an email about the project, I need to get that added into ConstructionOnline, all I have to do is just forward it to that project email address, go ahead and hit send, and then what's going to happen is it will just send that email and drop it right into my inbound email section here for this project. We'll just go ahead and refresh. And it will bring with it any of those attachments as well. So, if in this case we had a checklist or something attached to the email, that's going to be imported in so that you can also save that back into your ConstructionOnline files really easily. Jordan, you were telling me as we were getting ready for this webinar that you have helped a couple of people get started with this tool recently. Can you tell me some of the problems that they were looking to resolve in their company?
Yeah, sure thing. So I think it's a really common scenario that in the course of a project, someone will receive a very important email from someone very important for the project, whether that's the client or a stakeholder in the project or a subcontractor sends a message to just one person that they have the email address for. And the rest of the team needs to be able to, one, read that same information and be on the same page, or two, have access to the same files that are included in that message, and three, this message needs to be documented if it's as important as it is, and this happens quite often. It needs to be stored as part of the project so that it can be referred to in any sort of scenario moving forward where you'd have to reference back to it. Now, in the past, in order to get that message across, you'd have to do something like save the message as a file and then save it into the project and then figure out how to open it again. Or you'd have to forward the email to everyone inside of your contact list for the project and hope that they store it and read it as well. There's a lot of hurdles you have to go through to get this important information across to everybody else on the project team. Well, the inbound email function or feature really cuts out a lot of that extra work to try and share the information and to store the information just by giving you a really quick and simple way to store the message for safekeeping or to store it for later review and reference. Or to store it so that you can quickly pull the files out of the email into another place in ConstructionOnline. So when we're first getting set up with a project email, what I usually recommend is taking this email address from the top right corner and actually creating a contact for that email address inside of your preferred email platform of choice, whether that's Outlook, Gmail, Thunderbird. I know Apple has a mail app built in. The common thread between all of these platforms is that you can save different contacts and their related email addresses into the platform. So you could take each project that you have listed inside of ConstructionOnline and create a project email contact in your email list. And anytime you receive a relevant email for the project that you think should be stored and referred to later on, you can easily and quickly forward directly into the platform for safekeeping and storage moving forward. Another scenario this really helps avoid has happened to me twice in the past 2.5 years. My computer, for one reason or another, just fails to load, or the hard drive crashes, or something terrible happens. And if you're like me and you use Outlook, and you have it configured to download the messages from the server, when your computer goes down, you lose all of your emails. Every single one. That's happened to me twice. I've put some things in place where that won't happen again. But one of those things that I could put in place using ConstructionOnline is just forwarding imported emails into the email inbox. Those messages are much, much more difficult to lose. I'll put it that way. And so another topic that I like to bring up is thinking about what email should be sent to the project. Now, this varies from company to company and individual to individual. Some people that I work with want to store every project message inside of the project. You can do that. That's actually pretty straightforward. You can actually just copy or even blind copy in some cases the project email address. You could even share the project email address with subcontractors or trade partners or really anyone else. You'll have to add them as an inbound approved sender. We have a system set up in place so that if this message or this address leaks out into the world somehow by accident, well, you don't have to worry about spam messages coming in and polluting your project. But you can, however, add approved senders to the inbound email list here. And this will allow other people to email directly into the project as well. You could direct official communication to be sent to this email address. You could set this address up, again, in your email client and just copy every message you send about this project. Really, it's a flexible tool, and it depends on a couple of factors. First, your risk tolerance, how many emails do you want to store versus, trusting that they'll still be there in your platform of choice the next day. And secondly, it really just depends on what information you're wanting to share with your project team.
That's right. I mean, you could really make a case for storing all of the, all project emails ever, inside here. Or you could be a little bit choosier. One thing, if you do decide to add a large number of emails in here, one of the things that the inbound email tool also does really well is give you some searching and sorting capabilities. So you'll notice that as I'm searching here, maybe for the word Jordan, it's going to find the emails that have Jordan within the content of the email itself. So we're not just searching the email subject or maybe at the from here or the sender, but it is going to go ahead and search the body or content of those emails, so it makes it really easy to find information that you might be looking for. Or if you would rather do a little bit of a different type of breakdown, you could come and maybe kind of filter down by only the ones that had been forwarded from a specific sender. So I can see that, I forwarded 2 in here, but other people on the project will start adding emails to this as well. So if you need to come back and look at only the ones that you've sent in or that someone else has sent in, again, a lot of different ways to search through this information once you get those emails in. That is a little bit better than your regular email as well, not only because it's already organized by your project, but with such great search capabilities, it just makes it even easier to find what you're looking for, and that's always saving time. Now, the other thing that we'll go ahead and jump into within your project communication section is going to be project announcements. So project announcements are a little bit different from a communication standpoint, because here we're just not looking for any sort of response. When we are sending, messages or chats or instant messages here, we're usually sending that out and we're looking for or needing a response from someone on our team. So like with the Envoy Chat that I'm seeing here, as I'm doing something else, it looks like Jordan is sending me some messages, wanting to make sure that I'm seeing that. So that's happening in real time. With an announcement, we really just want to communicate information to a group of people on our project team, and we want to have that easily accessible for them to see. So I'm not really looking for a response here. I just want to be able to send an email blast to everybody at once and get that information out there. So announcements are really great for that. They're always going to live here on your announcements tab. So once you've made an announcement, you can always really clearly see them. You can almost think of this like the project wall or message board. This is where those are going to be posted. You can come back, you're not opening up any messages, they're just really right there in front of you. They're also front and center on the TeamLink portal, so if you're using TeamLink with your subcontractors or trade partners, the announcements are going to show up prominently there as well. So if we needed to maybe send out some new safety guidelines or something, something along that line, we'd be able to come in, make an announcement. So what will happen is we'll type in our message that we want everyone to get. So here we'll say, please note there are new safety guidelines we must observe when working Now we can set a priority here for this as well. So we'll set this one as high priority. You can even change the way the text looks. So if you wanted this to be, giant, you could do that as well. So again, a lot of different options for you when you're putting that together. Next thing that will happen is you'll be able to decide who all is going to receive an email about this announcement. If we want to send this to the whole project team, we'll just go ahead and select all, or you could just pick and choose who you wanted to receive those emails. You can also choose to skip emails because it's always going to be posted on the project wall here. Just so I don't blast my entire team today, I'll go ahead and skip the emails for right now. And now I have a new announcement posted here. That's also again going to show up on that TeamLink portal. And if I'm sending out the emails, everyone just got that in their inbox at the same time. So another really great way of being able to communicate that information out to the project team, super fast and easy, and then it's always available for reference so anyone can come back and look at these job announcements at any time, just as a reminder of what's been sent out there.
Yeah, and I can't stress enough at this point that you brought up, Holly, you can send this message out without even opening up the chance for commentary or reply. Sometimes when you're trying to get the message across to a project team, you really don't want to open up a space for dialogue. I know that sounds a bit authoritarian, but sometimes the message just has to be sent out, and it has to be communicated clearly and effectively and quickly, all of which an announcement handles very well. There's a few other ways you could do this manually from email, but if you slip anywhere, then you have inadvertently exposed everyone's email address to everyone else, and it's a very uncomfortable situation. This helps you avoid even worrying about that.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Jordan. There's no chance of commentary, so there's no reply all, and suddenly there's a conversation happening around something that's not really up for discussion. So this is a great way to really shut that, possibility down and just communicate information out clearly, concisely, quickly, and easily.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead, Holly.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say on a more positive note, I see companies using announcements to be a very effective tool for when projects first start, to really communicate to everyone on the project what the next or the first few weeks are going to look like, expectations for the job site, where to find the job site. We covered this in a previous webinar about engaging your subcontractors or TeamLink users. In my perspective and in my experience, the clients I've worked with who are doing a great job at engaging with subcontractors through ConstructionOnline all seem to be using the announcements feature, and they're all using it very effectively to communicate quickly and easily things that they are expecting are going to happen on the project in the first few weeks, and then they'll rotate out that announcement with kind of the next phase's tasks. It's a really effective tool.
It is. It's a great tool. Now, one last quick thing about announcements. You'll notice here that when I made my new announcement, it actually showed up right here in the middle. That's because my announcement about the directions to the job site is one that I always want to be at the top. So I've actually just pinned that to the top. So if you do start implementing announcements, or maybe you're using these a little bit already. One thing that I think is really super convenient is just being able to pin that to the top. You can actually pin more than one. So here, if I wanted both of these to always sit at the top and any new ones to be underneath, it's just a simple setting. You just right click and either pin to top or unpin. And whatever you have pinned to the top on your view is also going to be pinned to the top for everyone else. So if you're looking at like that subcontractor or team link portal here, you'll notice that the job site directions are always right here on top. And then we've got the additional announcements coming in underneath. So you do have some control over how that's organized. Now, one of the other things that we want to look at in the communication section very quickly here is that not all communication happens by text or email. Sometimes communication is happening over the phone. We often see that as teams become more efficient using ConstructionOnline, one of the almost surprising benefits that they start to see is that some of that just extraneous sort of constant communication about where did we put this? Is this done? Where's that picture? Did you get this from this person? A lot of that starts to get cut out because everyone on the project team has so much visibility in terms of what's going on. Everyone can log on and look at the schedule. Everyone can log on and, look at the files or see the pictures. So you have a lot of that efficiency starting to get built in. But it's not at all going to ever, eliminate phone calls that we would make back and forth or face-to-face interactions. And so that's where the call logs within your communication section really do come into play, because this is a place for you to record the details of those phone calls so that it doesn't get lost just because it's not, a phone call doesn't have that built-in paper trail the same way that an email or maybe an instant message would. So in this case, we really want to note the details of that conversation. You want to create that trail and create that accurate record for your project without, without having to do a lot of extra work. The call logs are great because they're really quick notes that are specifically designed to be about those phone calls that are happening on the project. So anyone can come in, add a call log entry, and you'll notice here we're just saying, hey, we had a conversation with Ted this afternoon about, how the job site progress is going. Here's what he told us. We talked for 20 minutes. And that way, if you ever do need to go back and reference that, you can pull that up and say, hey, remember, here's what we talked about. You can even add a call log, an attachment to a call log. So if you are maybe discussing something specific, you can attach that to jog your memory, later on. And it's great as well because all of your other team members on this project will be able to go in and look at these call records and see, okay, what type of communication is happening here. So again, that's visibility for everybody and just keeps things really moving on the project and keeps everyone in the know who needs to know this information. So here we're talking to Ted about how that progress is going. We'll go ahead and save that call log entry. Now that's just going to become part of my records for this project. So there are communication tools, again, built in for that communication that is happening more so over the phone, or, maybe more so in person. You would want to come in and create a note for the project or add that to some of your daily logs. Now, sometimes the opposite happens where, it's not that casual phone conversation that we're having or a back and forth email exchange, but we need to generate a more formal communication. So we see that, especially for those of you who are working commercial projects or, some of the larger residential projects will often have a need for more formal RFIs, so a little bit more formal tracking on the communication front. I'm actually going to jump into a different project here, so we do have a few RFIs set up. Now, one of the great things about RFIs is that it combines the best of several different tools that are already built in and that you already know how to use. So with the RFI, just like with a message, when we create the RFI, it's going to be just as easy as filling out this form. So There's nothing, complicated really that you have to do here. When you enter your question on your RFI, you're going to choose to create and send emails, and that's going to do exactly what it says. It'll create the RFI and go ahead and send the emails out. Just like with messages, though, when the recipient receives that RFI in their inbox, the only thing they have to do in order to reply to this RFI is just reply to their email. So I know, Jordan, that's something that we talked about with messages, and that our customers really love that in terms of messaging and how easy that is. And the RFI tool really does work much the same way. So here we'll just go ahead and create a quick RFI here.
Now, there's a couple of benefits just from this front page that some people overlook, but it was actually an eye-opener for me. A couple of months ago, I was working with a company who was struggling to bring some uniformity and consistency to their official correspondence, whether that was sending a submittal to someone or sending a request for information out. And they were looking for a way to standardize this in somewhat of a form, right? So I'm thinking along the lines of, okay, well, they want some type of document they want people to fill out. But when we first started looking into the request for information fields here, they said, this is it. This is exactly what we need. They can't deviate from this at all. There's no number or sheet number. It says drawing number every single time. There's no question of sending it to the right person because we know exactly who it's being sent to and who is ultimately responsible for providing us an answer to the question we're looking for or providing clarification needed. Just the simple ability to have everyone use the same format and the same form for an RFI is a benefit in and of itself. You really can't overlook how easy it is for people to just reply to this request for information when they don't have to download and then fill out and then sign and send back in some type of fillable PDF. When all of that's contained and really controlled through the platform, it's as simple as replying to an email. Now, of course, there's some other benefits that the request for information system inside of ConstructionOnline has over email, and that is the follow-through and the follow-up. The follow-through and follow-up for requests for information is going to be automated. So whenever we set a due date for a request for information, well, this is a point in time in which we'll absolutely need to have a response. This could have a significant impact on the project's timeline or budget, oftentimes both, especially if we don't receive clarification from a responsible party on time. What ConstructionOnline will do for us, though, is continually follow up with the recipients or recipients of this request for information until we have received a response and decided that our question or our clarification is resolved. And this sends out at a pretty regular cadence. It'll send out a month before, a week before, the day before, and the day in which we need a response, really just to continually nudge people to get back to us. We really need an answer from them. And all of this, again, is automated, which means that it's no extra effort on your part or your team's part to make sure that people are being followed up and that you're receiving timely answers to your requests for information.
Now, just like with the messages, those replies are, going to be easy and captured. Now, the normal workflow here for the RFI is, we'll create the RFI, go ahead and send out the emails. That immediately does add it to your RFI log here. As Jordan mentioned, that does start the process of not only notifying individuals, but reminding them. And then we also have a dashboard here where we're looking at our list of RFIs. We can always see quickly how many we're still waiting on currently. Of those, how many are overdue? So by looking at that due date, I can see that I have one that is overdue and that's going to need my attention. It looks like it was due yesterday. So I know that I need to jump in and take some additional action here, or if we just want to see only the ones that have been marked as resolved. Now, the process for resolution will be normally you'll send out the RFIs. Whoever you've sent that to is going to be able to go ahead and respond. So here I've sent this question out to Ted. I've also sent it to Sydney and Jordan so they can both reply to the RFI as well. Now, once those replies start coming in and you're satisfied you have the information that you need, you can go ahead and just mark the RFI as resolved here. If you choose the unresolved option, you do have a couple of actions you can take, which would be to send another question to this current contact, to go ahead and add additional contacts onto this RFI so that you can loop in more people, or you can also just enter a simple response yourself. But when we're satisfied with our results, we'll go ahead and mark that as resolved, and then I can see who actually resolved or closed that out, and it will move over into our resolved section. So this is really giving you not only a great easy communication tool, but a really fantastic tracking tool along with it.
Yeah, that's something else to point out. In a lot of cases, the request for information system is used to facilitate and also to open live requests for information between yourself and other people for a project. However, I've seen a lot of companies use the request for information system simply just to create and keep up with a log of requests for information that have been sent and received over the course of a project for two reasons. The first one is to make sure that the team has access to all of the requests for information in an easy to view table format that's not, having to dig through saved files and PDFs. But secondly, it also provides a couple of different reports that you can generate at the end of a project, especially if you need to submit something like that at the end of a project. It's a really, really useful tool. So you don't have to use RFIs and submittals just to send out information to people. You can also use it to log, backlog, or store existing communication between yourself and other team members on a project.
Yeah, that's a great point. We love the interactive nature of the communication tools, but we do know that you guys are always probably going to have a need or a desire sometimes to print things up, generate paper documents or PDF files. You'll notice here that with the RFI, I have generated this nice RFI document. So now if I do need to print this or, send this file on to someone, I can do that here. At the end of the project, you could come in and print each RFI. You also have, though, within your communication report section, a place to come in and generate that RFI log so that you could create a PDF basically of all of those RFIs. Now I can filter this down, but in this case, I'm just going to use a date range of all time for this project. It's a common question people will often ask, okay, what if I want to produce some documents to sort of archive at the end of a project, that we just save locally, and this is a great way to be able to do that. This RFI log is also a great tool for meetings and progress along the way in the project, just to really see where you're standing with those items. We do have a great question here coming in from one of you, and we are running out of time here. We've seen a lot of great questions come through and tried to address those as we've been going through these different features. But if you do have any last questions for us, this would be a good time to chat them over. And if we can't get to your question, we'll be happy to follow up with you individually after this webinar. So you can always reach out to us. But a great question coming in, really asking, what about for clients? Can RFIs be used to confirm information from clients? And the answer is they absolutely can. So just like messages will work back and forth with your clients, RFIs will also, and it is a really nicely documented way of handling those types of requests. Now, when you look at your ClientLink and TeamLink settings, you'll have the opportunity within your ClientLink and TeamLink sections to turn on that RFI feature. So here I've got that turned on, which means that clients can answer RFIs and they can also create RFIs. So I know we worked with many of you who are not only working with a single client or owner, but sometimes you are working with owners reps, sometimes you are working with a situation where it's not just one owner, but many different stakeholders in a project. Sometimes they have their own representatives. All of those people could be your ClientLink members. Or it could just be that you have your client out there and they want to be able to use this type of system as well. But, clients are able to respond to those RFIs, and they can also create them as well. So what that looks like for a client, if we go ahead and just preview that here. And we'll jump into looks like we're in Summit. So we'll just go ahead and jump in from a client's perspective. They are able to see any of those RFIs that they have been assigned to. So in this case, I have not CC'd my client on any of those RFIs. Now, if I wanted to go back and do that, then that's where those are going to show up here. And then the client can also add their own RFI that's going to come to me. And then I can adjust it from that point once the client has created it. So let's go ahead and add our client to one of these as well.
Holly, while you're working through this, I love this concept of this question because I've worked with a number of our clients who have shifted from the commercial world or the commercial industry segment into a residential job, whether that's through just shifting divisions inside of an internal company, or maybe they've started their own after working at a commercial firm for a while. And one of the strategies that I see that they use that our residential customers could really learn from is this slightly more regimented or more documented communication process. I mean, from a client's perspective, they're just receiving an email with a question, maybe with a few attachments. From your perspective, though, you're tracking a due date, what potential cost impact that could have, what potential scheduling impacts that could have, all of which you could track in a message if you were juggling this around maybe in your mind or you were keeping notes somewhere. But really, the RFI tool is a great replacement, I think, in a lot of cases for those project critical messages you would send out to a client. So that's actually one of the reasons why we've included requests for information in the residential plans for ConstructionOnline, which I think is fairly unique in terms of construction management platforms out there for a residential system to even offer requests for information.
Yeah, that's right. It's really one of the things that is, that's different and really better about using ConstructionOnline as compared to some of the other tools available on the market. It looks like we've got another couple of great questions from a couple of you really asking the same question. Can we control the scheduling of the RFIs or the repeat requests, or how can we control that? And so there's two answers, and I think and so glad that Sydney's there to respond to you guys in real time as well, because she has really the best suggestion here, which is that even though you can't adjust the settings for those RFIs to, in terms of how often people are nudged, remember that you can always come in, and this is kind of the great thing about the management part of this. You can always come in and say, let me look at my waiting RFIs. If you want to get this back to the top of someone's inbox, really you can just reply back to it here. Go ahead and either post a response or update the status, and you're going to go ahead and get that back at the top of their inbox. So, still haven't heard back on this. Where do we stand? We'll post that out, and that's going to get it, again, back at the top of everybody's inbox. And it's also you documenting that you are continuing to follow up on that item. So it's really even, better in that sense than being able to change the frequency, because it puts you in the driver's seat. So a great question and great suggestions about how to handle it. Now, you guys are probably also noticing within the communication section a couple of additional tools. We don't have time to go through the details on all of those today, but we will touch on them very briefly as we're wrapping up. The first one is submittal, so that's going to be part of that project communication process as well. We will have webinar sessions coming up that dive a little bit deeper into submittals coming up soon. But for today, do know that the submittals are available here as well. Much like RFIs, they're really easy to set up and fill out the form and get those documented. The big difference here is that with a submittal, we're looking for an approval or a series of approvals. And the submittal process allows you to set that up. So with an RFI, we need a response. With a submittal, we're looking for that series of approvals, and it really gives you a great platform for managing not only that approval process, but all the communication that comes in with that approval workflow is going to be built into the submittals tool. With transmittals, that's also available in ConstructionOnline. And much like announcements, but just, of course, a little bit more formal, here we're not really looking for a response. We don't need to get an approval. We don't need to get an answer to a question or any sort of reply. We just need to document that information has been sent or transmitted. And so this is our way of being able to do that. You can come in and send the transmittal to as many people as you need to, add attachments, go ahead and create that and send it out, and it will create that transmittal log for you. So that kind of wraps up your communication tool set available in ConstructionOnline, and all of these are going to work together really to give you overall, a powerhouse set of tools and options for how you manage your project communication. Now let's take a look at any last questions that we have before wrapping up today. Let's see. It looks like, I think between Jordan, myself, and Sydney, it looks like we've gotten to most or the vast majority of your questions. As I mentioned, if anyone does still have questions out there, feel free to give us a call anytime. You can reach Jordan, myself, or Sydney here at our main line, 800-700-8321. Or we can be reached at info@uda1.com. We would love to hear from you. We're always happy to work one-on-one with any of you guys who have questions about how to use these tools or about the best strategy to put in place for your team. If you haven't gotten started with ConstructionOnline yet, but are thinking about doing so, this is a great time to do it. A lot of teams are really taking advantage of this sort of pause in the middle of things to get their systems and processes set up. We're already starting to hear from you guys about expectations for a busy summer, and so this is really a great time to come in and get your platform set up, maybe do a little bit of extra training as you're getting started. So we'd be happy to talk to you about that as well. Speaking of extra training, Jordan, we do have some really great sessions coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. You can find those at udatechnologies.com/events. If you made it into this webinar, that means you already know how to sign up for the next few. I would highly encourage you to do so. Our next topic on the books is coming up. It looks like next Thursday at the same time slot. Pretty excited about this time slot. It feels like there's I don't know about you, Holly, but I feel a little more energized. Maybe it's because we're coming right back in from lunch. Not too sure what's going on there, but next week we'll be talking about managing files inside of ConstructionOnline. We didn't quite touch on this today, but I think this is another huge topic for managing and really effectively executing on remote work. Making sure you have access to the right files no matter where you are is really important. And that's true not just for your internal team, but also for subcontractors, maybe even suppliers, and absolutely for your clients. We'll be discussing strategies to handle that next week. The following week, speaking of clients, we'll be discussing the ClientLink portals. We'll be doing a deep dive into how to set up a really effective project for communicating with clients, not just residential clients, but clients all across the board. Business to business. We're talking, general contractor to subcontractors potentially, right? How you as a subcontractor can treat your GC as a client. There's some interesting strategies there. And then a very, very interesting and probably timely topic, how to accurately document your projects. We've got some great strategies lined up for that as well.
So we do hope to see you at some of those or maybe all of those future sessions, we'd love to have you join us for that extra training. We have some great new features coming up for Construction Online, so stay tuned for additional webinars that will dive into some new improvements we're making with our CRM and lead tracking. Can't wait to share those. Items database is coming to Construction Online, so that'll be something that we'll be looking at soon as well. So stay tuned to this events page for all the latest updates on classes that we're offering, new features and tools that are coming into Construction Online. We hope that you can join us for as many of those as you can over the next couple of weeks. For today, I think that is it. I think we're out of time for today, but we do appreciate you joining us. We hope that you've learned a lot in this session and had, a lot of great ideas about how to improve communication on your project team. Thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Have a great one.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll see you in the next webinar next week. Until then, have a good weekend and take care.